You're listening to the Sisters-in-Laws podcast, a faith-based podcast that spotlights Black women who replace silence with storytelling around pregnancy and infant loss and infertility. Black women experience miscarriage and stillbirth 4 to 5 times more likely than white women, according to the NIH and CDC. Whether you've experienced a miscarriage, infant loss, stillbirth, are trying to conceive, or have an infertility diagnosis, you will learn about resources and strategies to heal, gain clarity, peace, hope, and find an empowering path forward after loss. I'm your host, Erica M. McAfee, and you will hear me interview sisters-in-laws who have healed from such a painful and traumatic experience by sharing their testimonies and stories to inspire and help others turn their pain into their purpose. Now let's get started. All right. Welcome, Nae, to the podcast.
Thank you.
I would love to begin with you sharing a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, my name is Nae Watson. It's Nae for short. Full name is Naeshia. From Raleigh, North Carolina. Right now, I'm a blogger / influencer. I just talk about motherhood and loss. I actually owned a business from 2017 until last year when COVID hit, and I ended up pregnant and just wanted to kind of stay focused on that. So right now I'm just doing blogging and influencing on Instagram.
Awesome. So I would love for you to take us back on your journey to motherhood. Share with us your story.
Okay, so met my husband in December of 2016. I was just turning 19. We actually got married very soon after. We're both Christians and just decided, that we were, ready to get married. So we didn't start trying to conceive until July 2018. And it took us, I think, 6 months to get pregnant the first time. We got pregnant in January 2019, and I'm super excited, obviously. And we actually told immediate family on both of our sides, and actually a few family friends. Basically, we had shared the news super early. Didn't think that, anything would go wrong because we were so young. Was actually really surprised that it even took 6 months for us to get pregnant because at the time I was going on 20. I think I just turned 20 when we first started trying, and my husband was only 21. So, we didn't think it would take even, 6 months. We thought maybe 1 month or 2 months. But anyways, it took us that long, and just woke up one day. It was February 13th, one day before Valentine's Day, and just started bleeding unexpectedly, just pouring out, and no cramps or anything. So we were just kind of, praying and hoping for the best. But unfortunately went to the ER, and the doctor, he was super callous, which was the hard part about going to the ER. I actually kind of regret going there. Wish I had just called my doctor. It would have been the same result, but it was just, dealing with the ER doctor was really tough. But he basically said that it was an inevitable miscarriage. So we went home, obviously devastated, and just doing some more research and just kind of, holding on to hope that maybe everything would be okay. We just, praying and believing that, God would save the baby. But unfortunately, that did not happen. So at that point, I was pretty shattered, heartbroken. I shut down for that first month and just wasn't even sure, okay, well, I had a miscarriage and I don't know if I want to even give it another try. I was just scared, terrified, but that didn't last long. We were sure that we wanted to try again. So we started trying again right away after doing research, just kind of honestly ignoring the doctors, I guess they tell you sometimes to wait like 3 months after an early miscarriage, but we did not wait. Got pregnant, I think, after having one normal cycle. We got pregnant again, and obviously I was super terrified, anxious, just, you know, kind of expecting the worst from the get-go. Like, I mean, you have one miscarriage and you don't know, where to go from there, especially because I didn't have any answers. They weren't, able to tell me anything. All they told me was pretty much, well, sometimes it just happens. And, especially since it's your first baby, it could, your body may reject the baby the first time. So anyways, we got pregnant again in, I think we found out in April, and went to the doctor early because I was spotting, actually. And we found out super early anyways because I was super obsessed with getting pregnant again. And after finding out I got pregnant, I probably took at least like 100 pregnancy tests just to make sure I was still pregnant. And so went in early for an ultrasound because I was spotting and bleeding, and we had been down that road before. So there was a sac, and that's it, actually. And so with the first pregnancy, there was a sac and fetal pole, but the baby didn't have a heartbeat. So that's why he told us that was inevitable miscarriage. This time it was kind of early. I think it was like 4 weeks and a few days. So, just super early, and that's pretty much all they were expecting. So they sent me home. The spotting and bleeding didn't really stop. It wasn't heavy, but it was, sometimes it was red and sometimes it was brown. So came back again in like a week, and there was a baby this time, thank God, with, a heartbeat and everything. They just told me that sometimes you do spot, can be normal. I think we had on and off spotting for like the first 6 to 7 weeks. At 8 weeks, I decided to get a Doppler just to check on the baby's heartbeat because I was super anxious and scared all the time that something was going to happen. I Google a lot, so I guess I know more than I should when it comes to trying to conceive and everything. So I got the Doppler, and everything was going well. We were intimate, even though it was kind of scary being intimate. We were, especially around like the 12-week mark, we did the, I can't remember what it's called. It's like the 12-week test to find out the sex of the baby, and, to test for Down syndrome and all that stuff. We found out that we were having a girl, which was hard. Wasn't super thrilled. I mean, obviously just wanted to have a healthy baby, but I always imagined having a boy first. And later that kind of, made me feel worse when everything happened. But anyways, around that time, 13 weeks, started having like a lot of this weird discharge. And I also started having these Braxton Hicks. So I went to the doctor, of course, about the discharge, and they told me, well, discharge is normal, and Braxton Hicks can be normal around this time too. So, obviously you go through life trusting and believing in your doctor. So that's what I did. And the discharge was like kind of yellow tinged. It was really thick, not to be TMI, but kind of looked like a mucus plug. And I was telling them, like, look, I don't think that this is normal discharge. And they kind of just pushed it aside anyways. So I felt like I shouldn't have trusted them, but I did because they're my doctors. Fast forward to around 16 weeks, I was at Vacation Bible School as a teacher, and that night at 3 a.m., I felt a pop in the middle of the night, and then followed by like huge gush. Wasn't sure what it was. I thought maybe the baby had like kicked my bladder and I peed, and that did not turn out to be the case. We went to the ER that night, and found out that there was no water around our baby. Her name was Aaliyah. We named her right away, actually. So I was in the hospital for, I think, 2 or 3 days, and basically the doctors, again, super callous. I kind of wish that, like, after that first experience, I had just switched hospitals altogether, but I think I went to maternal fetal medicine, and they were just telling me, like, oh my God, well, you have to terminate. There's no possible way that this is going to work out. And, me and my husband, of course, believing in God again, that after doing some research, we were hoping that, like, the waters would reseal and that we would be able to get back to, like, a normal pregnancy. I know that happens for some people. It did not happen for us. I think like a week and a half later, around 18 weeks, they sent me home from the ER. I think it was like 2 days later after my water broke. Went home and I just started doing a bunch of different research on how I could possibly, help to keep her in and keep away bacteria and stuff until at least like 24 weeks viability. But a week and a half later, at 18 weeks exactly, the cord had fell from my cervix. I wasn't sure what it was, but all of a sudden I had felt like something, again, sorry for the TMI, something between my legs, and took a look in the mirror and I saw something sticking out, and it ended up being the cord. We went to the hospital and they confirmed it. So on that day, like, we didn't even get to leave and come back. They just said, look, you have to deliver. So they started me on, I can't pronounce it. It's a medicine that induces labor. So this was pre-COVID. I had, like, my parents there. His parents were there, some family friends, my brothers were there supporting me in the hospital, of course, along with my husband. And it was just like a huge, like, slap in the face, like, how could this happen again? After we just had a miscarriage and, we actually made it past the 6-week mark. And here we were going through this again, except this time is, we have a baby girl and we have a name. We had bought stuff for her. Other people had bought stuff for her already, and we were getting the nursery ready, and it was just devastating, to say the least, to be going through this again. Sorry. So we had her, and I did decide to take pictures, which was really hard. We left, I think it was the next morning, and we left with a box with her stuff in it. We decided to send her off for testing because, obviously this being our second loss at 20 and 21 years old, we just wanted answers. So we went home, had the box of her, some of the stuff that they, put in the box when you leave. And we got a picture of her footprints. And so at this point, my faith was completely shattered. Being a Christian, all I have is my faith, and I had none at that time. I was very angry at God because, how does this happen? Like, I think it's less than a 1% chance to have like a second trimester miscarriage, when everything is already going well. And, there was nothing wrong with her genetically. So we have no idea, at the time, like, what is going on? Why is this happening? Why do we have to go through this again? And so after that, I pretty much, well, obviously we didn't give up, but at the time I had given up for the first month or so, I was like, you know what, I can't do this again. But during that time, I was able to get closer to God and try to lean more on the Bible and Word and church, my pastors and everything. But it was definitely not easy. Daily, I was crying and didn't get out of bed most days. It was, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was going through depression at that time, and it was really hard to get past it, and I still didn't really get past it. Um, so fast forward to November that year, November 2019. Actually, mid October, I had found out that I was pregnant again, but this time, I was taking the tests and everything, and tests weren't getting darker fast enough. So, immediately I thought that I was having like a chemical pregnancy. And the weird thing about this pregnancy was that, like, it was just completely long and drawn out. So, I had multiple tests done for the pregnancy hormone, and every time I went, it would only go up like 100 or 200 at a time. So I think that it didn't end up going past 400, and I had multiple ultrasounds too, just to see if anything was coming up. Nothing came up, and eventually, I think it was 6 weeks and 5 days, I finally miscarried. I was bleeding all throughout that first 2 weeks. Found out at like 4 weeks, and from 4 weeks until 6.5 weeks pregnant, I was bleeding on and off, and the test never got darker, never saw anything on the ultrasound. So I believe they usually call it a chemical pregnancy, but it didn't happen fast like most chemical pregnancies do. So at that point, I was just like, definitely, I'm done. 3 losses, all 3 losses a different type, and it's just like, okay, well, how do I even have the faith at all to want to get pregnant again? But somehow we were finally able to get pregnant a fourth time, just fast forwarding through a lot of those details, but got pregnant a fourth time, and he actually made it. Thank God he made it. Wasn't full term. He was born at 36 weeks, which is pretty close to full term. But during that pregnancy, I had the early spotting too, but they put me on, we did a few different things. We did progesterone, and I had a cerclage put in place because they were like, okay, well, we're not sure what happened with Aaliyah, but maybe we could do this and just, see what happens. So we got the cerclage, and I did find out at 27 weeks that I have incompetent cervix, which basically just means that your cervix opens up early, which can lead to like preterm labor, which is what happened with Aaliyah. So basically found out that, that cerclage actually really saved his life. And that's the reason why we lost Aaliyah. So we did at least find that out. And when they took it out at 36 weeks, I actually went into labor the next day. So literally saved his life. We were thankful for that. But yeah, so it took us from July 2018 all the way until October 7th, 2020, when he was born, to actually finally have, a living, breathing, healthy baby. So, my faith was definitely shattered for the majority of that time. It was really hard, and I honestly can't believe that it's been this long since that happened. Coming up on the 2-year anniversary of losing Aaliyah, and I just can't believe that it's even been 2 years since that happened. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I skipped a lot because it is a lot, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yes, thank you for sharing all of that. And I would love for you to share more about your rainbow pregnancy. Like, how did you mentioned that you were, kind of battling some form of depression throughout your loss with your daughter and then your subsequent losses, the loss that you had right after that as well. How did you really go through that while you were pregnant with your son? And then once your son was in your arms, how did your grief show up during that point as well?
Honestly, I really have no idea how I even made it through all of that. I have no idea. The only thing I can say is that after after that third loss, I just started praying. Everybody was just telling me, look, just literally, I know everybody says this, but just go to God and tell him how you feel. Just, if you're angry, tell him that you're angry. If you don't have any faith in him anymore, just tell him that you don't have any faith anymore. Just basically keep that line of communication open. So I literally had nothing else to do. I could not do anything else but just pray and read. And I leaned a lot on Hannah's story in the Bible, and actually Job, when he lost, all of his children, he pretty much lost everything, and he was given everything back and double. And I kind of leaned on that too. I really think that just the only thing that helped me was God, and faith, which is ironic because I didn't have any until after I lost 3 babies. And when I had gotten pregnant the fourth time, before I had gotten pregnant, I was like, God, look, if I'm not supposed to have a baby, just don't even let me get pregnant, because I can't, literally, I could not handle a fourth loss. That was my fourth pregnancy, and I only have one child to show for it, which is crazy in retrospect, but it was really hard to separate my son from Aaliyah. It was hard to remember that, like, I'm not pregnant with Aaliyah anymore. I'm having a boy, 2 completely different babies. It was really hard to stop comparing pregnancies and trying to remember that this was a different baby, this is a different pregnancy. So I definitely cried a lot during the pregnancy, even though, like, I wanted a boy in the first place, but after finding out that I was having a girl, I fell in love, and I planned on having this girl, pretty much rewiring my brain to, like, accept, okay, well, you're not having a boy, but you're having a baby, which is the important part. So that kind of came back to memory a lot during my pregnancy with my son. Just really hard to accept the fact that I'm not having a girl anymore and that I'm having a boy. So that definitely was hard throughout the process. And when I did finally give birth, I actually cried. I cried a lot, but it was mostly being happy. It was finally, I'm crying because I'm happy. And at that point in that fourth pregnancy with my son, I did end up switching doctors. I switched hospitals because and my husband would tell you, like, literally everything was a trigger for me, like, not just seeing baby girls or like baby clothes, seeing a pregnant woman. Literally everything was a trigger for me, including, like, the street of the hospital that I delivered Aaliyah in. So I switched everything, and So that night it was really hard to remember that, like, okay, I'm going here tonight because I'm actually going to have, a living baby. And I had to keep telling myself that it was not the same experience as the last time that I was in the hospital. I did go to the hospital a lot during my pregnancy with my son because I thought he wasn't moving enough, or I was having like intense contractions throughout the entire pregnancy, from like 12 weeks. And that was the same with Aaliyah as well. So that was terrifying, the fact that I'm going through this again. I was in and out of the hospital a lot, but mostly because I was paranoid. And um, I've actually been talking a lot about mental health this month, and paranoia is actually a symptom of depression. So that really just didn't help my case. I was anxious, paranoid, and everything throughout that pregnancy. So yeah, that's kind of what I dealt with, in terms of depression throughout that pregnancy, um, with my son.
So what other like tools and resources, books, podcasts, anything that helped you just navigate your journey to motherhood, and then now, having that baby in your arms, what are some things that you look to help encourage you on your journey?
So, like I said, Bible, God, church, all of that was majority of it, but I was able to find a book actually that I really liked. I can try to pull it up really quick. Aside from that, though, I was on Baby Center. It's pretty much like an online forum for like moms and pregnant women to get on, and I found a lot of refuge in a group on there, for women who had been through similar to me, anywhere from like early miscarriage to like a full term stillbirth. We all came together in that group, and we were able to like, share, things that we wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable sharing with people in real life, because that was also something that I really struggled with, is like, not having anyone around that knew exactly what I was going through. Like, um, people who have gone through like multiple losses, or loss of, a baby that actually, like, statistically should have made it, like Aaliyah. So not having them around, like people around in real life, was really hard for me. So I leaned on Baby Center a lot. Um, and like I said, there was a book that I read. Okay, I can't find the book right now. I'm gonna have to probably pull it up another time, but basically it was a book written by someone who like compiled 4 stories of real women who had gone through this. And it was one of the stories that really resonated with me, was this woman who was pretty much traumatized by blood. And it really kind of reminded me of myself, because like even to this day, like when my monthly cycle comes, I still like I feel something like when I see it. Because it's like I really have to remind myself that it's not a miscarriage. I'm having my monthly cycle. But in this story, she pretty much she had a miscarriage, and she was bleeding all over the floor. And like pretty much almost every day from the time that she had the miscarriage, she would hallucinate the blood on the floor. And at the end of the story, she did finally have a happy ending. She had a baby. And most of the stories, actually, I think it was all the stories, had happy endings. And that was a good resource for me, because it was like, okay, you're not crazy. Like people really go through this. People really do, they have hallucinations. They have, triggers from the smallest things, like, things that wouldn't, or not necessarily wouldn't or shouldn't, but like, things that most people wouldn't imagine would trigger you. Like for me, like I was telling my husband at one point that, like down to going outside and smelling like a certain smell in the atmosphere kind of reminded me of, that time that I was going through Aaliyah, the, losing Aaliyah. like just going outside and that the atmosphere, like it's, summer, it's hot, just that whole thing is triggering, which is, you can't avoid summer. So anyways, just, reading that book and realizing that, it's all normal. This type of grief is normal. That really helped me because like I said, I didn't really have anybody that went through that in person. And getting back to connecting with the ladies in the group, it just, kind of felt like in real life, family and friends, they mean well, they want you to heal, they want you to get better, and you get that. But at the same time, what I've learned is you really can't put like a time limit on grief. Especially when you haven't gone through it yourself, you kind of have to like step back and say, okay, well, I understand you're going through what you're going through, and take your time. And, even though people mean well, you kind of feel like they're tired of hearing you. They're tired of seeing you sad, or they're tired of hearing about different things that trigger you. So having that online resource was a big help to me, and I definitely recommend it to anyone who goes through loss. Anytime I hear somebody has gone through loss, or if anybody like messages me, I'll always suggest the group that I'm in right now. And even now, like having my son, like, is still a huge resource, because I'm like, even now with having my son here, he's almost 8 months old. Like, I didn't get to go through any of this. I didn't get to hear Aaliyah cry for the first time. I didn't get to hear or, see Aaliyah picking up a toy and smacking it on the floor, just stuff like that. Sometimes even that might trigger me. So having that online, group that I can, vent to is like a big help, like then and even still now.
Yes, absolutely. And it goes to show you that support is needed in all areas of our lives, even if we get it from strangers that we've never met in person before. So I'm so happy that you have a community that you can turn to. So, what encouraging words can you leave with our listeners, those who may be grieving losses from throughout the year, losses due to COVID, or just this, trauma that we have all experienced with this coronavirus?
I would pretty much just say, like, what everybody else always says is that, like, there really is a light at the end of the tunnel. Even though it does not feel like it, I am like, perfect example. Like, I literally went through loss after loss after loss for a whole year, and it felt like I was never going to see light again. And even though, I got emotional earlier, like I can talk about Aaliyah, and I can talk about my losses now without breaking down, that's huge for me. So like, I just feel like, as time goes by, you don't forget. You'll never forget, but like, time really does heal your wounds. So definitely, somebody, if they're going through it, I just try to encourage them, like, I know you don't want to hear this, but you will be happy again someday. Like, it might not be tomorrow, it might not even be a year from now, but you can find happiness again. So that's usually what I like to tell somebody if, they reached out to me.
Perfect. So, where can our listeners connect with you after this episode?
They can connect with me on Instagram. I always answer my messages at Nae Noelle, NAENOELLE, and I also answer email. It's Nae Noelle again at Gmail.
Thank you so much, Nae, for sharing your story with us. And I know that the listeners will definitely be blessed from it. Thank you for listening to today's episode. For show notes, go to sistersinloss.com to stay connected with us and join the Sisters in Loss community and receive my weekly newsletter. please go to sistersinloss.com/newsletter. That is sistersinloss.com/newsletter. Please rate and review this episode, and I will talk to you next week.